As a short disclaimer, this video is about the Black Shores and the Shorekeeper, meaning huge spoilers for the 1.3 patch and Shorekeeper. Introduced in the 1.3 version of WutheringWaves, the Shorekeeper plays a vital role in the history of the Black Shores, fighting an ongoing battle against the Lament which she herself has witnessed quite a few times. She was created from high-purity remnant energy, acts as a protector against the Lament, and with it, tacit discords, which are enemies formed from unstable frequencies. While not created, but instead awakened by us the rover, or rather the astral modulator as the Tethys system documents, the Shorekeeper was meant to be a tool for us solely. As a short explanation, the Tethys system is a powerful network that I will go into closer detail in another video, but honestly, all you need to know for now is that the Shorekeeper, as a tool, is assisting the Tethys system in analyzing and predicting the element. And in the beginning, that's kind of what she sees herself as. After being awakened by Rover from a cocoon of crystals, she solely believed that she was a tool at our disposal, which, and how surprising, we weren't too much of a fan of. According to her character story, the old Rover, or astral modulator, was against her calling herself the Shorekeeper and nothing else, saying how that isn't a name, and even with her saying how a tool doesn't need a proper name to function, still going against it by saying they'll have quite some time together to talk about that. Seeing as she still calls herself the Shorekeeper though, doesn't seem like her attitude towards that title-like name has changed, even if she's only keeping it as a remembrance to the old Rover, but she herself has. Initially, the Shorekeeper is responsible for recreating and interpreting the reverberations, which are traces left by human actions and emotions, using a system called the Sonoros. Despite her computational abilities and capacity for surveilling everything in a near omniscient way, the Shorekeeper found herself puzzled, mainly exactly by the human nature she was observing, and particularly by the contradictions in their actions, emotions, and decisions. While it's normal for us to contradict ourselves, the Shorekeeper isn't exactly human, and her entire logical thinking is originally made of program. And thus, her logical programming and scientific analysis could not fully explain why humans cry from both joy and sorrow, act against their own best interests, and show contradictory behavior such as self-sacrifice and cruelty. That said, throughout the years wandering along with Rover, seeing them feel all kinds of emotions, as well as witnessing the lament, tragedy, and possibly all emotions humans can have, she is no longer just a tool devoid of them. Originally confused as to why humans do the things they do, as I've said, it was on a specific mission noted in her character story that the Shorekeeper began to experience the complexity of human life firsthand. The Rover brought her to see a village that would soon meet its doom, according to the predictions of the Tethys system. The village they brought her to was completely oblivious of their fate, everything seeming peaceful and in full bloom, that is, until disaster struck. Witnessing the cycle of human suffering during the lament, despair, resistance, and eventual death, she surprisingly saw not just data points and outcomes she was accustomed to, but the emotional and irrational forces that drove human actions. Despite all of this, another turning point for her was when she watched the Rover trying their best to prevent an inevitable tragedy. Going against the logic and prediction of the Tethys system, their motivation was rooted purely in empathy and care for strangers, which obviously clash with the predetermined paths of the Tethys system, raising questions in the Shorekeeper's mind about the value of human freedom and choice against whatever the Tethys system dictated. To be quite honest, being made up of crystals and thus not being human, she shouldn't question herself at all, but she does. Even after Rover left, which I will also make another video on once we have more information on why they left, she kept witnessing more happiness and despair, which I will get to in a second. She evidently followed Rover's footsteps. Personally, I think a notable instance is mentioned when the Shorekeeper also just ignores the Tethys system, letting a new bloom bearer into the Black Shores that the Tethys system did not choose. You see, all bloom bearers are chosen by the system, worthy or not. As long as the Tethys system predicts them as such, they will join the shores. But just as Rover did before, in inviting people that just want to join out of their own accord, she just allows that as well. Even when this bloom bearer meets their doom, in that moment the Shorekeeper is witnessing the loss of a person that was somewhat close to her, or at least someone she thought about a lot. She thinks not what the Tethys system would want her to say, but rather what Rover would say. While unsure, still telling her that she did good, even in the bloom bearer's last moments. More or less unfortunately, the rover had chosen a route that went directly against the Tethys system's calculations, seeking to use the lament directly against it, and to do that, a core was needed. Due to that, the Shorekeeper stayed behind and assumed the role she was originally meant for, losing her original body and using herself as a vessel through which all the reverberation data flowed. Unfortunately, the lament never meant anything good, so the data was always filled with grief, chaos, and decay. All of this caused the crystals she was made out of to dim and her form to break. You can actually see this quite well on her body, adorned with little white waves which, according to her resonance report, are scars. Eventually, even with Rover gone all of these years, she started questioning if she remains the same being after replacing so many broken crystals on herself, somehow still finding it normal that her, something she still saw as a tool, breaking was normal. Though through all of the experiences she made, even she herself went against her innermost programming, feeling a sort of yearning at that thought. She didn't want anyone else to take her place, even if she was just made up of crystals. Humans stay the same after being hurt, so why shouldn't she? After all, she still retains memories and choices like humans do. So she decides to keep going, not letting another being made of crystals replace her. After meeting again, she has realized all of this for herself, realized most painful emotions and what self-sacrifice despite herself meant, even sacrificing herself just for us like the humans she saw would. After the entirety of the story went down, we eventually returned to her side. Having broken the Mobius loop, the Shorekeeper finally attained freedom and her original form back. Despite years of agony through the data of the reverberation and the lament, she finally felt happiness and even questioned if the feeling she was experiencing was love. Instead of using her freedom for venturing the world she was kept from so many years though, she knew she wanted to share her freedom with the rover. As a little TLDR to summon our beloved Shorekeeper up, she finally felt emotions of her own, not through witnessing others and not through letting them flow through her. Emotions like longing for something were finally her own, becoming more than just programmed crystals. In my personal opinion, the story for the Shorekeeper was honestly amazing. While I honestly wish that they included more of what I just said in the main story, rather than her character stories, it is kind of nice to meet her objectively and read more about her personality later on. Besides the Shorekeeper, we also learned a lot about ourselves from this patch, which I really hope continues over the following patches. But regardless, what do you think about the Shorekeeper? Personally, and I'm not embarrassed to say this, with all the animations, scenery, music, and the like, the story made me cry in the end. Regardless, I hope you enjoyed and have fun exploring the Black Shores. Bye bye.